What's up guys, Hector here, and as I promised I was going to do a vlog of my latest PC upgrade build. And before I get started, I just want to say this build is not for everyone. This isn't for all average gamers or regular gamers, even sort of high-end gamers. And this isn't even for regular video editors. The type of video editing I do is kind of high-end and not a lot of people do it. So let's just say I spent a lot more money than I probably should have, than a lot of people should have, and a lot of average people should have. So with that out of the way, let's get going. And also, it's been about a month since I did the build, because I originally did the build, even did shot a little video of the update vlog, but along the way I had to change some things, so I decided to just reshoot the video, and now here I am. So my original plan was to spend a decent amount of money and do a few things, and I wanted it to be an RGB build, because my current computer, I guess I should say my last computer now since a month later, it just had red LEDs, and it was kind of cool, but I just have different moods, and I like so many different colors sometimes that I just wanted it to go through all the colors of the rainbow, do an RGB build, you know? And so I'm pointing over here because my computer's over here. I'm laughing because some people at work watch my video and they just say that every time they walk by me because they're jerks. But alright, so I originally planned to keep more parts than I currently have now. At this time, the only parts that I still have are my hard drive and my power supply, and I think that's about it. Everything else was upgraded or changed or whatever. Hard drive is like a 3 terabyte, I think a Seagate HDD, maybe. And so that just has all my videos, pictures, and stuff like that on there, documents. So the power supply I kept was a Cooler Master Silent Pro Gold 800 watt, 80 plus gold certified. And so of course 800 watts, a lot of people will say that's kind of overkill, and I would definitely agree. But those who might have seen my original PC build about 3 years ago would have seen that I was planning an AMD build, and so I was gonna use this huge AMD graphics card that like sucked out a ton of power, and then I had an AMD CPU which sucked out a ton of power, and so I was really worried about anything overheating, and then plus I used a ton of fans and some LEDs and stuff, so I was like going with 800 watts just to be safe. But now it's kind of overkill. So hard drive, power supply, that's pretty much the only thing that's the same. I upgraded the chassis, case, whatever you want to call it, from the Cooler Master Half-X full tower case to the Cooler Master Master Case Maker 5. I believe that's what it's called. And so I went from a full tower case to a mid tower case, and I originally got the bigger case because, like I said, I was going to do an AMD build with a huge GPU, and I wanted enough room in there to make sure it was all good, and then plus HAF Half-X, it's high airflow, so I wanted it to be super cool because those AMD parts can run super hot. And it was really solid, metal and everything is all good. The wheels did kind of break, like 2 of them broke, but then I found out I could just order some new wheels and parts off the Cooler Master website. For some reason, one wheel cost like 20 bucks, but buying an entire accessory kit with all 4 wheels was like 15 bucks or something, if I recall correctly. It might have been the other way around, 15 to 20. Either way, it was a lot cheaper to get the entire accessory kit with all 4 wheels than just a single wheel. And I don't know why they did that, but whatever. So the Cooler Master Maker 5 is a really good case. It's modular and stuff. It has a little kind of pop out thingy on the front and the top to make it look all encased, but of course that will reduce the airflow. So if you're doing like high intensive stuff or whatever and you want a lot of air in there so it doesn't get hot, you would want to take those off. I'm fine with taking those off. Some people like their stuff all enclosed and to be kind of silent and run sort of hot, but whatever. And I changed the boot drive where I put the operating system, all my programs, all my video games, from a Samsung 500GB SSD solid state drive to a 1TB Crucial SSD. So about 3 years ago, 500 gigabyte SSD on Black Friday was about $300 or so, which was a pretty good deal 3 years ago. But of course, solid state drive prices are going down, and so the 1 terabyte was about $300, I think, during Black Friday. Or no, I think it was before Black Friday, maybe. Yeah, before Black Friday. And so solid state drives, they're not necessary, but I would recommend them to anybody doing gaming PCs or video editing or anything like that, because it speeds up your computer so much compared to just a regular hard drive. And it's not needed. I wouldn't even say it's an enthusiast type thing. I'd say at this time it's an average PC person type thingy. So solid state drives, definitely recommended. Probably one of the biggest and most important upgrades I did was the CPU. So originally I had the AMD FX 8350, which is kind of comparable to an Intel i5 sort of. And it was a really great CPU at the time 3 years ago, and it's still a pretty decent CPU now. So you can still use it for gaming, and you can do it for average video editing. But like I said, I kind of do high-end video editing, and some people say you can game and stream with it. Some people even say that you shouldn't stream on the same computer that you're gaming with. I tried gaming and streaming with it. I did Dead Space 1 1080p. Streaming was like 720p, and the audio would shut off. And I looked in some forums, and some people said that was probably because of the CPU. And of course it depends on the game. It depends what game you're playing for how much CPU usage you need just to play it, and of course to play it and to stream. So always depends on the game. So I upgraded from the AMD 8350 to the Intel Core i7 5820K processor. So this is an extreme processor, but it's the lowest end of the extreme processors. Because there's i3s, i5s, which are perfect for gaming. i5s are perfect for gaming. i7s, which goes into the more productive area, gaming, video editing, streaming, stuff like that. And then there's the enthusiast platform, stream platform, whatever you want to call it. That's where this begins, and where most people do not need this. Most regular gamers, video editors do not need this. But just saying, if you want to do some heavier video editing or whatever, gaming and streaming, and you want to be, good for some time, I guess you can get this, the lower end enthusiast platform, whatever, i7 5820K. I was looking for a while at the 5820K, which is Haswell Extreme Edition, and the I believe it was the 6800K, which was the next level up, which was, I think, the Skylake. And I kept seeing a bunch of benchmarks comparing each other or against each other, and they were pretty similar. Sometimes the 6800K went a little bit above, but then when you overclock the 5820K, that went above, and it just seemed like a better overclocker. But of course, it does depend from CPU to CPU how great your overclocking is, and if you're on a budget, well, it's usually a $50 difference between the 5820K and the 6800K, if the 6800K is what I'm thinking and not the 6700K. But I got this used, so I actually saved like over $100. So yeah. And to cool the CPU, I got the Corsair Hydro Series H100i V2 all-in-one closed-loop water cooling system, or whatever you want to call it. I was using a Corsair closed-loop water cooling system for my last build, my AMD build, well, AMD CPU, because I used an NVIDIA graphics card. But it was the H60, which was just like a single 120mm fan and radiator. And of course, with water cooling, bigger is always better. This has two 120mm fans on there and a big old radiator. I stuck that radiator to the top of the chassis so I can push air out through the front, or through the top, the hot air. And this does come with kind of like a little LED on the top of that little water block, and you can set it to do a certain color if you want, or you can just set it to where if your CPU gets too hot, then it like turns a certain color, whatever you want. But you have to download the like Corsair Link software in order to customize that. If you don't download it, the LED will automatically be white. You can also set it to just shut off completely. And then of course, new CPU, new motherboard. So my last motherboard for the AMD processor was the Asus Sabertooth 990FX Gen 3 R2. And that was probably the best motherboard you can get for that AMD FX 8350, because a lot of other motherboards, probably all the other motherboards, only had PCIe Gen 2.0 lanes. So if you had a latest new graphics card, you couldn't use the full potential, full bandwidth with a PCIe 2.0 lane. You had to get PCIe 3.0 lanes. All other motherboards had PCIe 2.0. My motherboard had PCIe 3.0, so it was using the full bandwidth, full potential of that graphics card, and so it was a really great motherboard. But of course, new CPU, you have to get a new motherboard to fit the new socket and all that good stuff. And I was looking around motherboards for quite a bit. Definitely was going to get X99, obviously, for the high-end i7 processor that I got. Ended up getting the MSI X99A Gaming Pro Carbon, and it had the stuff that I really needed. It had enough PCIe lanes that I needed. It had a USB Type-C port in the back, so that was a plus for me. And then it had some RGB lighting, which of course isn't necessary, but I want to do an RGB build, so I got it anyways. And then it has some pretty nifty overclocking tools, so that's also cool. And then everything else, I guess, standard stuff. And then an upgraded CPU and motherboard meant I needed upgraded RAM, because a lot of these new CPUs and motherboards use DDR4 RAM instead of DDR3, which means my old RAM was useless. So I was looking around at different RAM, and then I was kind of thinking about getting Corsair Vengeance red or white LED RAM, and I want a quad channel because quad channel. And I'm not exactly sure how I came across it, but I ended up coming across the Corsair Dominator Platinum Special Edition RAM, or Limited Edition RAM, and they have black, shiny black, or glossy black I guess, and chrome sticks around. And it already comes, because you can get the Dominator Platinum RAM and then get an upgradable light bar on top of it with a little LED light bar and heat spreader on it. And you can do that, or you can get this limited edition one, which doesn't come in chrome or the glossy black, and it already comes with a light bar on top of it, and plus it's like specially chosen sticks and chips of RAM and all this BS. Really, it isn't necessary unless your CPU has integrated graphics on it and it needs a ton of RAM and high speed RAM to use those graphics for gaming. You really do not need this sort of RAM. But I saw that chrome RAM reflecting RGB lighting in some videos, and I was like, I have to have it. So this was one of the things that I just wasted money on that I didn't really need to. So I got the Corsair Dominator Platinum Special Edition DDR4 RAM in chrome, and this is limited number 293 out of 500. And then it has a lot of special stuff. It has this like cloth on it to wipe off the chrome, and they even gave me a hat for free, a little Corsair hat. So let me read it. It says Dominator Platinum Special Edition DDR4 memory is designed specifically for Intel X99 and 100 series system builds with absolutely zero compromise in style and performance. The exclusive finish used in the Dominator Platinum Special Edition brings an unmatched level of personalization to any build. Engineered with the highest grade sorted ICs and subject to rigorous performance testing, the special edition of our Dominator Platinum DDR4 memory ensures the absolute highest overclocking potential and reliability. So yeah, just a bunch of fancy words. It is 32 gigabytes on 4.6 because that was the lowest I could get, 32 gigabytes. I was just planning on getting 16, but 32 gigabytes, 4x8, and it's 3200 megahertz. the speed. And of course, speed doesn't really matter unless, like I said, you have integrated graphics and you need all that stuff, you know. But then I don't even think any of the X99 CPUs have integrated graphics, do they? I might be wrong, but just off the top of my head. So let's talk about my RGB real quick. So originally I got some Corsair RGB fans that I was going to put on the Corsair radiator, and then have some RGB coming down on my components. But the fans didn't really work well, and they were brand new, because I did see some ones that I could get like secondhand sort of, or you know, refurbished, and I would have saved some money, but it was like, oh, but they're not under warranty and stuff, and I was like, forget that. So I got brand new, and it still didn't work. One fan would not light up at all, the other fan would just light up into green. It's supposed to be RGB doing all these different colors, but I don't know what the hell was going on. And then the RGB on my motherboard seemed good enough, and I got a cable mod RGB strip, magnetic strip, and so that was definitely good enough. Actually the cable mod strip seemed too bright for the regular side panel, you know, it's not tempered glass, it's like plexiglass on the Cooler Master Maker 5. It seems the cable mod thingy seems more than enough. The RGB on the motherboard is fine in my opinion. But I was kind of thinking of getting that tempered glass accessory and replacing the side panel. But because that tempered glass is supposed to make things look a lot nicer, but I am worried that it would shatter. But it is tinted. So if I do get that, I do want to keep that cable mod RGB strip, because that thing is super bright, and that would be enough to go through that tinted glass. I think the RGB on the motherboard is faint and good for regular plexiglass, but probably not good enough for that tinted tempered glass. And then I also got these Thermaltake rings, because that has two eyes, so I say rings or whatever. And it has RGB around the fans. I got two of them and put them on the front of the case, so I can have RGB on the front and then RGB inside and all that good stuff. And I am still kind of thinking, because these are high static pressure radiator fans, I was kind of thinking of putting those on the radiator, putting the radiator on the front of the case. But then again, I didn't want to really put hot air from the radiator into my GPU. I wanted the radiator on the top to push the hot air out and then suck cool air into the GPU and stuff. And then push it out the back also. And well, with the radiator being on the top, I wasn't able to put my Blu-ray drive on the top slot of my chassis. I'd have to put it one slot down. So it's like kind of looking, but whatever, it does its job. And lastly, the graphics card. So I was just going to stick with my NVIDIA GTX 780, which I've had for 3 years now, well, I guess about 3 years. And it's been really great, and it still maxes out a lot of games. It just depends on the game that you're playing, of course, at 1080p. But then Black Friday came around, and I was able to get my hands on a 4K TV for about $300, because I was super freaking lucky. Philips TV, but it doesn't have HDR, so whatevs. 4K TV still, and my GTX 780 can't do 4K and 60 frames per second. So it can do 4K 30 frames per second, I believe, if I remember correctly, but it just wasn't good enough. So I decided to upgrade my GPU to the NVIDIA MSI partner GeForce GTX 1080. Skipped a generation because it went 780, then 980, and then 1080. There was no 880 desktop GPUs. Those were only mobile GPUs, I believe, laptop GPUs. It's also VR ready, in case I want to get a VR headset sometime. Maybe, I don't know. And my last GPU was MSI, and so kind of trust MSI at this time. And this thing, I've been using it. It is friggin' huge, but there was enough room in my case for it. And I also took out those little side section things where you would put extra drives, but I put the drives on the bottom, so it's all good. And so this is 8 gigabytes of GDDR5X RAM, because they allowed them to do the X RAM, because they were originally gonna just do it on the Founders Editions, but I guess they allowed some third-party people to do it, like MSI. And the fans on this don't even start up unless you get to like 50 degrees Celsius. And I was kind of worried about that for a while, but it seems to be fine so far. So far, so good. And the stuff that makes the most noise anyways are the fans on the radiators, so whatever. And it has a really awesome dragon design and a metal black back plate on the top of the graphics card. And on the side of the graphics card, it has a little LED fan that says MSI and has a little dragon. And it actually comes, or you can download this MSI program software that allows you to change the color of the LED on the side of the graphics card. And since I have the MSI motherboard, it's the exact same software that changes the RGB lighting on the motherboard. So I can do different types of lighting, or I can just do a solid lighting, or I can just shut them all off. And so that same software for the motherboard is for the graphics card, but there's different software, Corsair software for the radiator, and I guess if you use other Corsair stuff. And I don't have any software for that cable mod RGB strip, but I think I would be able to use the RGB strip and plug it into the MSI motherboard under the LED plug, and then it should sync up the strip with the motherboard. But I'm not 100% sure if it would fit in there, because there is this little box that comes with the chassis, the Cooler Master chassis, where you can plug the LED strips and the fans and all that stuff, a little fan controller, to make them all sync up. But the fans, the Thermaltake fans, also come with its own little fan controller thingy. So I try to hook them up to it, hoping that it would all sync up and all the RGB would sync up, same colors, but it didn't seem to work that way. So the Thermaltake fans are doing their own little thing, the motherboard is doing its own little thing, and I usually just keep that as it is. And if I ever get the tempered glass, I will turn on the cable mod RGB strip a lot more often, and then I'll probably try and plug it into the motherboard and see if that syncs up. But since I just have the regular side panel for the Cooler Master case, I really don't turn on that cable mod RGB strip that much. That's pretty much it for my PC upgrade build vlog, whatever you want to call it. If you have any comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. I'm always happy to interact with all my viewers and everything. And if you like this video, you can give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more video game and tech related stuff. Sometimes I do vlogs like this, sometimes I do product reviews, video game gameplay commentary, strategy guides, reviews, a bunch of good stuff. So yeah, if you want to see that, definitely subscribe. Guess that's it. See you guys later.